Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your story, whatever you're comfortable with. I see you're pretty open in your vlogs about some of the horrible stuff you and your family went through.
Yeah, we've become open because we want other people to understand that it happens to everybody. And when it does happen, that there's nothing to be ashamed of. I was ashamed for years. Didn't even think I would ever be able to come forward or that I would live to come forward, but I did. And so that was driving force to all of this, is educating other people on what happens with the abused.
Now, you set up a foundation. It's called the Help Save Foundation. It's probably, what, a year now you've done it?
2
years. Wow.
2015 we
Gosh.
started, yeah.
That's awesome. I remember when you first did it, like, you had shown people through your Facebook posts some of
Yeah.
the stuff you had gone through. None of us knew. And then you started the foundation, and it was amazing. What exactly does the foundation do? Where is it based out of? What services do you provide? What events do you have that you can help young women with?
So what we do is, the SAVE part is actually an acronym. It's Survivors Advocating for Violence Education, and that's what we do. We educate. So we started off wanting to just be in the police departments and train upcoming social workers on what abuse victims go through so that they could better help us. My first experience in the police department was not good. I did not get the help I needed. Because I didn't get the help I needed, my abuser was actually able to go on and abuse 2 more women along with continuing to abuse me. So we thought it was very, very important that that's where it needed to start, with the police department, and making sure that women get the help they need and aren't kind of pushed underneath the rug. Luckily, the second time I came forward, I was able to get the help I needed, and we were brought into the safety. What we do is we started off going into the colleges and training upcoming law enforcement and social workers. But as time went on, we found that women started calling and writing emails and reaching out for help. So we've kind of branched out a little bit more, and we get a lot of phone calls and we get a lot of emails from family members and people going through abuse that need help, want someone to talk to, want to know what their pathways are to get the help that they need. The other thing that we do is we have started going into the high schools and middle schools and teaching the boys and the girls dating violence and the signs of an abuser, which has become very helpful.
Now, you said that the high school and middle school, I read a lot of statistics doing research for the show. And these are some antiquated statistics that, you know how that goes as far as abuse stats, you know, and
Right.
you try to get the most
Right.
current stuff, and they end up only feeding you 2012, 2013.
And that's because they don't have a lot, because a lot of people don't talk about
Gets
it.
unreported,
Right.
exactly.
It's very silent.
And you're looking at 11 to 15% of high school and middle school students have already been physically assaulted by their significant others
Absolutely.
by that young age. We're talking 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
Yep.
Like, I remember, like, you know, I don't want to say her name, but she was like feisty in middle school, and she'd kick like people and all that stuff. But now looking back, you're like, man, I guarantee she's an abusive individual in a relationship.
Right.
And we didn't know any of that stuff coming up. And
Right.
there was no identifiers. There was no classes for us, you know, in health classes. Oh, don't do this. And, you know, we learned the dumb stuff, but we didn't really actually learn any of this stuff that actually was happening. It's been happening well before us.
Well before us, and that's exactly why we're doing what we do, because we're bringing that to the forefront. And it's surprisingly in the middle schools, and a lot of times with the boys, we hear a lot of questions about the court system, because I kind of go through everything.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in the juncture, I've been through the coming forward, the court system, the release, the everything. So when we talk about the court systems, there's a lot of kids that come forward that have a lot of questions. So it triggers what's happening and what they are going through for themselves at home, and what they may have to come up for and do if something were to happen with their own families.
Yes.
So it is important on both, not only to teach them the right way to be, but also for them to understand that there are other children that are involved as they are and what they can do.
Now, when you go with your foundation, you said you go into colleges and schools. Are you in the New Bedford system at all? Do you do any work
We
with
haven't
the
gone
health
into,
guidance?
yeah, no, not yet. We haven't gone into New Bedford. We've done some Fairhaven, we've done Bridgewater, we've done Taunton, but we haven't gone into New Bedford yet.
Now, when you do Fairhaven, you're dealing with middle school, high school. Are you starting at a younger age, or is it mostly the high school stuff?
No, we started in middle school this year, actually.
Perfect.
Yeah, we started in middle. We found that middle is really where we're seeing a lot of mostly verbal abuse. And because it's starting there, we figured instead of going right to the high school, we would start with middle school. So we did. We did the boys bob team last year, which was a running group, and it worked out really great. We were very responsive. We had a lot of questions that came out of those boys, so it was a good experience.
Awesome. Now, as far as the kids coming up to you and talking to you, I can only imagine that some of them would actually not have actually been abused, but are in abusive households.
Absolutely.
Do you have a lot of that, of kids that are just scared that, hey, my mom and my dad are doing this, can you help us?
Yeah, we actually had an interesting situation that happened with my older son, Hunter, last year. So he was in 8th grade, and he's a fun kind of kid. And there was another boy in the school that was a big kid, mostly known as a tougher kid. And Hunter doesn't talk too much about what happened. He doesn't talk too much about anything. I think it's very uncomfortable for him to have to say that his father was in jail for what he did to us.
Yeah.
So instead, he doesn't talk about it at all. So people just knew that his dad wasn't around. That's what they knew. And last year, somewhere along the lines, my impact statement, which I don't know if you had heard that. Right.
It's on YouTube.
Yes.
And we are going to put the link on YouTube.
Okay. So the impact statement had been played at the high school. And this boy's brother heard it and told his brother about it. So then now he heard it. And he walked out to Hunter and he hugged him every day. And this is like a big, tough kid.
Yeah.
And he said, "You're the toughest kid in this entire school, the things that you've been through and how you are." And I expressed to Hunter then, you have a relationship with him that you didn't even realize you had, because he probably has the same things going on in his own house.
Absolutely.
Had no connection with anybody else. And now the two of them are close because they have a connection that they didn't even realize they
Amazing.
had. So it is pretty amazing. I do love telling that story because it's such a wonderful, it was an eye-opener for Hunter to realize that
It's just- yeah.
he has a place in this world
And
and
he
what
has
he's
an
doing.
impact, and
He does.
in his past has actually helped out this kid's future probably.
Oh, absolutely.
And this child was acting out. You said he was being a bully and all that prior
Well,
to
yeah,
this.
not really being a bully, but he's just a tougher kind of kid.
Yeah.
You know, he's not someone that you would think to get feelings and emotions from. And yet,
He
for
was-
weeks, he was hugging my son every single day because he was showing his feelings and emotions because he could finally relate to someone.
I can see helping the adults. I'm a softie for kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you could tell. Look at my man right here.
Hey.
I tear up when I hear this stuff about kids. And the past couple of weeks, I keep talking about it's cool to help adults. And we just have this problem where we're just always helping adults, always helping
Yeah.
adults, always helping adults. And it's like fixing broken toys with antiquated parts. You can't really do it at a certain point. And what you're doing is, it's God's work by helping these children out. There's
hear that all the time.
there's no way to repay a person that helps a child come out of a situation like that. And now your son's doing it
I know he is.
through you.
Yeah. And he and my younger son are actually pretty involved in what we do. In the projects that we've done in the past, the pocketbook project was huge. Then after they saw what happened with that and how big it was and how much of an impact it had on our community, for back to school last year, they said, "Listen, we want to do something for backpacks. Let's help the domestic violence kids get their school supplies," because the moms and the dads and whomever has the custody of the child, it's not that easy. So you're down a parent now. So he really wanted to make sure that we were providing for everyone, and we did. And now the next project that we're working on that we're hoping to have launched by next year is a Big Brother, Big Sister program.
That's awesome. What does that entail?
Well, what we've realized and what my boys have realized is, I'm a single parent now. So they don't have a father figure. Because of that, they miss out on some things. I'm mom. I can only be mom. And I can only
I see some of the
teach them
stuff you
mom
do with
stuff. True, but I'm a mom. I'm a boy mom is what I am. So they wanted to really implement a program in which other boys and girls could have what they needed. So a big brother, big sister. If they lost their mom, they have a big sister. If they've lost their father, some kids are so unfortunate that they lose one parent to jail and the other parent to murder. So we want to be able to provide a program for them that they have someone to look up to. They have some kind of older person that's going to kind of take them underneath their wing and say,
take the
it's
role.
okay. Absolutely.
Take the role. I'd love to be involved
Very
in
important.
when that comes. The wife and I are really into taking in children these days.
Yeah, I can tell.
And he helps us more than he realizes.
See that?
You know, he thinks it's just we're just helping him. That's not the case
That's
at all.
not the case.
He provides me with a perspective that I've never had. Isaiah and his friends have shown me a lot in the past couple weeks. Stuff I never saw. You know, and I'm sure you go through the same thing.
I do, and that's part of why I do what I do. It's almost, I don't want to say it's a therapy to me,
Yeah.
but you know, we do speaking engagements. I do speaking engagements at companies. They'll call and they'll say, okay, well, we have an idea, or we think that one of our employees is being abused. We need you to come in. We need you to play your impact statement. We need you to talk. By the end of those, we have 2 and 3 women that are coming forward. That's huge.
Now, I want to keep plugging away at your contact information throughout this interview. We're going to put it in, but a lot of people aren't really visual as well as hearing. You know, exactly how do we get in touch with you at the Help Save Foundation?
So you can either, a lot we do through the website, which is thehelpsavefoundation.org.
Okay.
And then we do have the Facebook page, the Help Save Foundation, which we do get a lot of messages from that way.
Perfect.
Otherwise, typically people will reach out to me through email or through
Friend of a
message.
friend.
Yes, and then it turns into phone conversations and meeting with people and figuring out
Now,
what we're going to do.
it's fun and dandy that you're doing all this. You still have scars to heal.
Of course.
Are you continuing to get help for yourself?
Yeah,
to-
absolutely. You have to, because there are certain
I
things that
just-
are
yeah.
total triggers for me,
Yeah.
that aren't for others. But you know, there are some cases that come in front of me that I say, okay, well, I remember those days, because it's interesting how you can be in a situation with 5 different women, all that have been abused, and yet all of their stories are so similar, because it's the same kind of MO for each person. So there are certain times where I'll run into someone, or we'll be sitting there talking, and
Yeah, you gotta be, oh my God, that happened to me, and it must bring
Exactly.
these feelings and these
It's
fears
tough.
back in your life
yeah,
again.
absolutely.
That's horrible. Saya, you wanna ask her a question, bud?
A lot of times, like, when you talk to women who have, like, been through that, they say, like, they felt trapped. Like, is that, like, a real feeling that you feel, like, while that's happening in your life?
Yeah, I'll tell you that my trappedness was complete fear. So you must have saw my last video. I'm not sure if you did.
I was gonna ask you if you could actually just go ahead and tell that story again. I
Okay.
literally teared up about your parents.
Oh, yes. So this is an idea of the entrapment. So within 6 months of meeting my abuser, I was ready to leave.
Yeah.
And I was told, I was forced into the vehicle. I wasn't living with my parents at the time. They lived in New Fairhaven, we lived in New Bedford. And by trapped, for me, was total fear, because I was put in a vehicle and I was told that I was going to drive to my parents' house with him, and he was going to murder my parents and I was going to watch. And he literally drove me within a block of my parents' home, with me screaming, trying to jump out, trying to do everything possible to get away from him, that this is what was going to happen. And so once I saw that side, I realized I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
The second time that I talked about is he was in Florida, I was in Massachusetts. So you're talking about a long distance, 24 hours driving distance. And a woman had called the house that had been hanging out with him in Florida, and she told me. And so when he called, I said, listen, I'm packing my bags, I'm leaving. Well, he flew home on the first flight and rang the doorbell to his own house to make me answer the door, to let me know once again that I was not going anywhere. So trapped. Yeah, you're trapped. You're trapped in fear. There are many more instances in which, you know, I felt as though I knew there was no way I could go. In fact, the situation that led to me coming forward, I didn't actually come forward until the next day, because I literally didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether I should do it. I didn't know whether I was better off not doing it and just letting him do whatever he was going to do. And if I didn't make it, I didn't make it. Or if I should go to the police. And I literally sat in that parking lot for a long time trying to decide whether going in was going to be the last thing I was going to do or not.
It's amazing. I don't like forcing any type of bad thoughts in this, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this information out to these young, like today I haven't promoted a show like I have today. I've been pushing it everywhere. I've been asked, I bother them all day. I'm like, you need to put up a thing, remind 7 o'clock, we need young women to watch this.
I don't worry so much about bad thoughts, so don't worry about that.
All right.
Because at this point, in what I've already done for the last 2
You've talked
years,
about it, yeah.
this is what I do. This
I
is
know.
why, and that's why the video
Coming
blog
from
came
me,
out.
I
Right.
see you, and then I'm like, we talked like about this, that we're gonna work on something. We're gonna get your vlog out there. We're gonna get this, and it's been something that Josh will tell you. I've been telling him, hey, I want to get her on, and you start thinking about what you want to talk about, and there's parts of this that are uncomfortable, and a lot of people don't realize one of the parts of abuse is the sexual part of it, that you're being assaulted by this person who's trapping you.
Right.
Obviously, there's no connection at that point.
Right.
So for years, you're just getting abused sexually
Right.
by your partner at that time, or you're the guy who's doing whatever he is to you. A lot of people don't realize that's not the only part. Isn't just physical abuse, it's the sexual abuse that comes with it.
And it's the emotional abuse and it's the mental abuse, because I read a lot about, and I've met a lot of women who will say, well, you know, in the court systems, they said that there must have been a point in which I liked him because I have children with him. And what would have happened if you said no?
Exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, if he's
That's
your
huge.
story about getting
It's huge.
brought to see your parents getting killed,
Right. Right.
there's no anything else is fair game for this guy.
Absolutely. And once they know that that fear is instilled in you, forget about it, because it's over.
It's part of the trap.
absolutely.
It's a power issue, and it's not only something that they've been brought into. I believe that most studies show that these abusers have witnessed abuse.
It's a learned behavior.
It's a learned behavior. It's not something that just pops up. It's
No.
not. It's not a cold or hey, one day you're gonna. It's something they've seen and something. And sometimes I've read that it's actually progressed, that they watched their mom be not physically abused, but really mentally abused and treated badly.
Yeah.
And so they thought the behavior kind of like snowballed into physical abuse at
Right.
that point.
And that is so true. And we see that a lot as well. It is a learned behavior, which I'll tell you, of all the work that I do with the women and the men and domestic violence, the most important thing that has ever been said to me was by a resource officer at one of my son's schools, the older son. And he said, I just want you to know that you have successfully broken the cycle of violence. To me, it started at home for me because I had 2 boys.
Yeah, that was going to be that's where this was going.
Huge.
That's
huge.
where this was going.
Especially for my older son, because he spent, when the DA's office asked him how long he had been watching his mother be abused, he said, ever since I can remember. He was 12 at that time. I mean, he didn't remember anything but that. He remembered things that I had suppressed and had not even thought about for years. And as we were going through the court systems and the whole process, he was remembering all of these things that, of course, I remembered once he said them, but I couldn't believe that he had seen those things. I couldn't believe he had heard those things.
Yes.
And it wasn't that I was getting beat up every day. Sometimes he would just walk in the house and say things like, I'm going to slit your throat today. Or the worst one for me was he would walk in the house and say, pick a wall. And I would innocently think, for what? Pick the wall that you want your brain splattered on tonight. So now, even if I didn't get hit that night, all night long, I'm worried about what is going to happen to me.
What is?
So it's not just the physical, and it's not just that victims go through physical abuse all the time.
No.
13
It's the
years
torment.
wasn't all physical
That's
abuse.
why I asked you if you were still getting help, because
Yeah.
the cuts and the bruises,
Yeah.
they go away. It's the internal stuff that...
It's the
that's-
terrorizing.
It's the terrorizing.
And that's what I used to say all the time, is I was terrorized.
My main purpose tonight is to get your word out. In the most broken down, basic common denominator, what do you tell these young girls? What are the first signs to look for? All right, this is happening, you need to do this. Like, how can you guide them before they get too far along into an abusive relationship to get out of it today? What do you tell them? Like, how, you know what I'm trying to ask.
I do know what you're trying to ask. We basically, I really emphasize the fact that you should be treated with respect. Because anyone that has witnessed respect in their home and is going to care for you and love you is going to respect you. Any lack of respect it's a form of abuse to begin with. If for the young girls, if your boyfriend is texting you and he's swearing at you and he's calling you nasty names, there's no need for that. If he's wanting to know where you are and you're not there at a certain time, I deal with young girls all the time that are supposed to be in this area, but instead they went out with their friends and now they have a guy that's calling them 15 times wanting to know where they are.
I had stalking written down.
Absolutely, and it happens all the time. And I have actually seen it at the parks where I'll be walking past a young man, because I do a lot of walking, and I'll walk past a young man and I can hear him yelling at his girlfriend. And I'm thinking, what did she do on the other end? Like, what's the matter? Where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with? Those are signs. Whenever someone's trying to spend more time with you than you're allowed to spend with anybody else, that's a sign. That's a possessive sign. That's someone that's not going to let you go. So we really emphasize on those. And anger, anyone that's like flipping out really quickly. I mean, you want to stay away from them.
There are signs.
There are. And I didn't see those signs.
And every girl likes a bad boy at that
And
age.
every girl likes a bad boy. Yes, we're all guilty of that.
And
yes. But there's a line to be drawn between bad boy and someone that's going to be abusive.
You know, even as an adolescent male, you kind of beat your chest a little bit to be that bad boy because you think that's what the girls want.
Right.
And it's not.
It's
and
not.
I've been there, you know. I'm going to tell you a story about you that you have never heard. It's brought me to tears.
I'm going to tell you a
Talked
story
to our
about
good
it.
friend Matt about it.
Matt is actually, I'm very grateful for him. He puts a lot together through New York Life, and New York Life is one of our supporters.
Yeah.
So let me just say that when I do all these speaking engagements, it's non-paid.
Yeah.
We work solely on donations. So whenever I go even to an organization and they say, well, how much do you want for it? I say, well, you make a donation. Because regardless, I'm going to do it anyway. Because this
Yeah.
is what I want to do, and this is my
yeah.
passion. But if you want to make a donation, that's great. So I just want to say that Matt is awesome, because New York Life actually does make a donation to us every year.
Awesome.
In the name of Matt.
Him and I have talked about you. As you know, we're both, you know, he's our mutual friend. He did some graphic design work for you back in the day, I think
Yeah,
it
he
was. You know, and that's how you guys, we were always cool, but like, and I bought a fireplace from you guys.
You did.
And I went to your shop, and I met your husband. You introduced me to
Wasn't
this
my
guy.
husband.
Well, yeah, your
Yeah.
abuser at the time, I'm sorry. And you were a friend, and you were trying to help me that whole time, and you were getting beat and abused. And I didn't know, you know, and looking back at that, that really bothered me. That this was, when you came out,
Right.
that I could have helped you somehow, and I missed it. And it really, you know, it really, really, really bothered me for a long time. And then I play it back. I went there 3 times for that one transaction, and you helped me out a lot. And you know, like trying to like, you know, as a friend, hey, I'm gonna give you this price, and you hook me up, you know, and I didn't do anything for you, and it really guts me. And I talked to Matt about it. He's like, man, don't do that, you know.
Right.
Because being in the line of work I'm in, I'm always the protect
see
and
it.
save, you know what I mean, and help out and control. Like in corrections, it's like, you know, I'm the guy who keeps everything in order, and I should have seen stuff, you know, and I didn't, and you just didn't show any signs of it.
No.
He seemed grumpy, to be honest with you. I'm like, you know, it's like not too personable, but that's
Right.
the most I got out of him. People say that about me to my wife. He's grumpy. But I'm the biggest teddy bear there is, you know, and it's like, it bothered me a lot, Jen. And I apologize, I missed those signs, you know.
Oh, don't apologize, because I'm going to tell you something. There's a lot of people like you that do feel the same way. And one of the most emotional ones for me was, it was the year after we were in court. Well, it was a few months after we were in court, and there was an award show on. And this is when domestic violence was really coming to the forefront, and they were talking a lot about it. And so they did a tribute to domestic violence. And I'll never forget that I had a neighbor that texted me. She was a neighbor when we lived in New Bedford. And she said, there's a show on right now, the Emmy Awards or whatever it is. She said, and they're doing a thing for domestic violence. She said, I will never forget your screams and the fact that I never helped you. And I said, don't feel that way, because you couldn't.
You can't help it.
I
know
know,
what she's
but
saying. Like it
right.
bothered. When I wrote it down, I just wrote my story, and I knowing someone that happened to, I wish I could have helped. And it's like it bothers people too. Like, and that's
It
so
does.
selfish for me to be upset.
Right.
Because, God, oh, you feel bad. What the hell? She went through all this crap. Well,
Right.
who cares what you feel bad? You know what I mean? But that's the other side to this. Your family. Your mom, your dad. I would be broken inside if I knew my little girl had gone through all this. You know, it's...
I think for me, I don't feel bad about any of that. I don't feel like anyone should have helped me or anyone could have helped me. I truly don't. I feel as though I'm grateful to be alive, to be honest with
Gosh,
you.
yes.
I mean, every day to me is great and is a blessing because I am still here to even talk. So to me, that's number one. But I never feel like there was anything anyone could do. I think because I was so afraid and because I was in so much fear, I feared for everybody else. Like,
you get into protection mode. You worried about your kids. You worried about your family.
I mean, you worry
You
about
just
everybody
sacrifice
else
yourself.
except yourself.
Man, you're so damn strong. Jeez. Dawn Andrews, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but it sounds like it. She's writing in. She's saying your foundation is a blessing. Your story is riveting, and thank you for sharing. You're brave. Your program designed for only girls and women, which is a great question.
No, it isn't. We do help a lot of men as well. More and more men are coming to the forefront with domestic violence. So yes, it's open to everybody.
My wife's mean to me. She made me work do too much today at the house now. My wife's perfect. Do you do a lot of work with alternative communities, the LGBT community? Have you come across that at all?
A little bit. We've done some stuff with the hearing impaired. We did do a couple projects last year with hearing impaired, and we actually had a great interview with a girl that was doing some research for that. So we're kind of collaborating with a lot of others. We do a lot of work with the homeless as well, because what most people don't realize is that...
They're homeless for a reason.
And not only that, but our domestic violence shelters are full. I mean, I can call every single morning at 9 a.m. to look for a bed for a specific victim, and there's no beds anywhere here in Massachusetts. So the next place that they go to is a homeless shelter. So we do work a lot with the homeless as well, because a lot of the women that are on the streets are domestic violence victims. People don't realize that, but they are.
Yeah, it's a fact.
It is.
It's a definite fact. You know, you look at these people that are homeless, and they have stories too.
Not the panhandlers, but the homeless.
And it could be a panhandler. Maybe
Yeah, it
that's
could.
their last
Right.
ditch resort. Trust me, I'm against the panhandlers because for my own reasons. But you never know. Maybe they went through what you went through. You know, and that's all they know.
That's why I don't judge anybody, because like you said, you saw me and you wouldn't have known. And there's a lot of people like
God,
me
I
walking
can't even
the
look
streets.
at you when you say that right now.
But there's a lot of people walking around just like me that are more worried about what would happen to you if you did know.
What happens now? Is he still in prison? Is he out?
He isn't. So
How
he
long?
is out. So
What were the charges? What did he get found guilty of? And how long of a sentence? Because we are going to start hammering judges here pretty soon.
I hope so, because this is a very unfortunate situation. Because he pled guilty so that we didn't have an opportunity to go on the stand. He did plead guilty. He received 2.5 years, 18 months of which he did. He was supposed to receive an ankle bracelet when he came out. So in the meantime of me coming forward, there was a woman that, as I said, the first time I went to the police station, there were 2 more women after me. So there was another woman, and she did come forward, and he was found guilty in her trial. So
Did they run a concurrent?
they ran them concurrent.
Oh, gosh.
They sure did. So he went from having a 2.5-year sentence with me and a 4-year sentence with her to getting out in March of this past year, which really messed our lives up quite a bit, to be quite frank.
You weren't ready for it.
No, we were ready for October of next year. His release date was October of 18. We all went to all of the parole hearings, and ironically, the last parole hearing he had, they denied him parole and eligibility for future parole because they found him unremorseful, and then they released him 6 months later.
So he's unremorseful, and he still gets released 6 months later on a
Yes.
concurrent sentence.
Yes.
And that was in Bristol County, correct?
One was in Bristol County, and the other one was in Rhode Island.
So the Rhode Island case, they just
The Rhode Island
cleared
case
it out
came
and
after. Yep.
time served over here.
Yep.
We'll have to talk to.
He did a little bit of time over in Rhode Island,
Island,
but he
okay.
didn't do. He should have finished in October 18. So no, we weren't prepared at all.
What services are out there now for you that he's out and he's this dangerous and unremorseful? Is there anything for a woman that once her abuser gets out of jail, to any services besides a phone to call 911? Is there something that you can do? Do you have a protective order at the moment?
We have protective orders for what they're worth. They're a piece
They're
of
a piece
paper.
of
I
paper.
personally don't think they're worth anything.
Yes, exactly.
Both my sons and I, we actually have lifetimes. So, I mean, for the boys, they'll have to redo it when they're 18. But we do have lifetimes. We do not go by those at all because we don't feel that they're, depending on the person. Restraining orders are made for law-abiding citizens. Someone that
I tell
receives
everyone
that's a
that
law-abiding citizen.
That deadbolt on the door is just for a law-abiding citizen. 'Cause any
Exactly.
criminal can kick it.
Absolutely. And if you want something bad enough and he wants to come after us, he's going to. That piece of paper is not going to stop him. I did start this whole thing to create an army for myself and the boys, and I've been pretty successful at creating an army.
You have a good support system in your area?
We do. We
Immediate
have.
area?
Well, we do. I mean, the Fairhaven Police Department is amazing. I could never talk enough about them. They
Awesome.
truly saved our lives, start to finish. And today, I know that we are very protected. Our school systems are very protected. Everyone that is around us that has anything to do with us is very aware that there's an opportunity. If there's an opportunity for him to get to us, he's probably going to take it.
I've never gotten so many comments on my show.
Yay.
I knew I would. We've streamed at good numbers here, and we're talking about guys like Scott Medeiros, the guy I played softball with. He watches a lot, and I just said good game to the guy a lot, at softball, but I've never really hung out with the kid. And I know he's a good kid because we have mutual friends. By far the best guest ever to be on this show. Wow. Incredible woman. All exclamations, all uppercase. God bless you, Jen.
Thank you.
Then we got Erin Elizabeth. You are an inspiration to all women, Jen. I love you, girl. I don't know if you know her.
I do know her.
And then Megan asks the Chris Resendes question. Not even a question, just it is what it is. I know the answer to it. I don't know if you're comfortable to talk about it. Do you have your license to carry?
Hell yeah, I do.
Okay.
Absolutely. And as you know, I reached out to you about training Hunter. And my children are trained as well because we know there's going to come a day where he's going to come knocking at our door. So
You just
yes.
know that.
There's not
freaking terrible.
Well, here's the thing: is that
Well,
there was a lot that went back and forth, and the words "Is she fucking crazy? She will be looking over her shoulder for the rest of her life." When those words got back to me,
You know.
I knew right from the start that I was taking a risk and coming forward. But eventually, I figured he's either going to kill me one way or the other. I'm going to kind of leave that in God's hands and pray that it doesn't happen. And we try to protect ourselves the absolute best we can.
Gosh. Kristen Giovanni, you're amazing. Nick Requena, that guy should have been euthanized. I agree 1,000%.
Yeah, me
Nobody should ever. That's a monster. That's a terrorist. We
Well,
throw the word terrorist around
But that is.
very, very liberally in this country right now. You're a victim of terrorism. Your life, you were terrorized by this individual. Your children are terrorized by this individual. It's the textbook definition of terrorism.
Absolutely. And the things, they go on. And again, I was one of 6 victims for this one person.
That's
So
nuts.
that's another thing we're working on is legislation because I do believe that if you are accused or if you are convicted of domestic violence more than once, that you should be on a registry because there is a
Have you
lot of other
approached
women.
any local legislators on
I
this?
haven't because we've been working on the Big Brother, Big Sister, so that was coming along. We always have a lot of big things going on.
I tore a couple of their asses last episode on their stupid pay raise they gave themselves, but I think we can figure.
So we should start working with them and make them.
Yeah, we can. That extra pay, guys. You know who you are. This is something that's got to be taken care of.
I think it's very important.
This is
I mean-
something that, I knew this was going to be a powerful show, and I knew that I was going to be shaken, and I knew that I was going to get teary-eyed. And you didn't. It was way stronger than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to have you back on all the time.
Anytime.
All the time. This
Anytime.
is something that we need to get you in the schools. I'm going to talk to Mayor Mitchell. I'm going to give him your contact information. We do a lot of work with Chief Cadero in New Bedford. I'm
Yeah.
reaching out to Dartmouth PD. We got to get your story out there, and we got to get you involved with the towns and just your passion and your story. We got to help others deal with this because this can't happen anymore.
No, it can't. And I think the most impact that I have on people and why I keep doing what I do is that I always start every one of my speaking engagements with that impact statement because that's when I was most vulnerable and that's when I was at my worst. And yet people see me today and they see the strong woman before them. So they now understand that they can go from that to this. It can happen. It's a matter of making it happen.
Jen Souza trying to make me feel good. We went to school with
She's saying
Jen.
we're not that old.
She said, "Thank you for sharing your story, Jen." Which we knew that was coming. You make such a difference in so many lives. What you do, even tonight, I guarantee you saved somebody tonight. I just know that.
Yep, I do too.
Know that you saved at least one person today. And then she threw in P.S. I'm a fan of your show, Chris, and I know you are because you watch every week, Jen, and I appreciate that. And I'm gonna get your kids' classroom size down. I promise you, I'm not stopping. Very passionate, seems like a very strong woman. She doesn't seem like it, Kevin. She is. Trust me, I know. Please, any upcoming events that we can plug?
Basically, the most thing to plug right now is just that video blog. And otherwise, start looking for when that Big Brother, Big Sister comes out, because that's our main focus right now, other than the typical work that we're doing in the community anyway.